What about that? Make less of a mark with your carbon footprint by breastfeeding. Does it mean anything whether you're making an impact on the environment if you're using bottles, do you think?
I suppose it did, because if you're using like milk that's been like transferred and delivered into like the shops and stuff like that, obviously you've had to use petrol and stuff, which makes an impact on nature itself.
Does that bother you, or do you think actually...
To be honest, I think that for many young people, I don't think it really matters as much as what it would do with older people, because we've always been brought up around things like that, whereas older people have seen the change from how it used to be to how it is now, how everything's like in shops and delivered and stuff like that, but we've always been used to that.
So you're more environmentally minded than older people anyway? No. Yeah,
I suppose, yeah. Like we've always been told to think about the environment when we do things, stuff like that.
So then that in future, if your girlfriend or wife were to get pregnant, you go, hang on, have you thought about breastfeeding? Because it'll make a great impact on the environment if you don't.
I don't know about that. I think I just recycle a bit more too.
I've seen so many mums that have breastfed for a few weeks, a few months, a couple of years, and all of their achievements are as equal to each other.
What about the hiccups that you get when breastfeeding that we've talked about latching on and that sort of discomfort. I remember with my first child, I remember meeting another new mother in a hospital waiting room somewhere, and she said, oh yes, I said, how are you getting on with it? And she said, oh, and I've had mastitis and then the flu, and I said, oh gosh, you poor thing, having to cope with brand new baby, settling in, and then mastitis, and then the flu, and I didn't quite appreciate just how bad having mastitis was until I had it with my second child 3 times. Yeah. So how then do you go about kind of trying to get over those sorts of hiccups?
In an ideal world, we would catch a mother that was having feeding issues before it got to the mastitis part. So we're talking ideal world, I appreciate. There are a couple of different types of mastitis. One in an infection mastitis, one just with the milk is blocked, which can be very easily remedied, and the best person to do that is actually the baby. But those mothers that do go on to get an infection and have the flu type symptoms, to think about the practicalities of feeding a baby, it would be far easier for a mother that is feeling under the weather to just have a baby on top of her feeding, rather than having to wash things up and sterilise things and prepare things and have all of those home duties that would be extra. I've not seen a mother with a mastitis that's got that far for a long time. And I think with all of the information and literature and the places that they can go for help, we're seeing those less and less now, which is great.
Have you heard anything bad about breastfeeding? Have you heard any bad things?
No, I've not really heard much about it at all. I think that's like one of the problems in England as well. It's not really covered a lot, like in the media or anything, so people don't really know or understand like the good and bad points of it. So,
have you heard any bad things about using bottles?
It could probably like damage your child's teeth and like go on the shape of the actual bottle.
So if anybody is breastfeeding at the moment, wants to come and join in with the groups that you've got running here, or wants some advice or some information about breastfeeding, where should they come?
Yeah. Well, the Village Children's Centre, we're at the top of Denmark Street. I run a support group every Friday morning between 10 and 12, and it's a drop-in. It's very, very relaxed. We sit around on beanbags chatting, and it's not just for women that are experiencing problems. So it's for any breastfeeding woman. I have access to a separate room if somebody did want to come, and the first thing I would do is observe a feed, and if they were having complications. And then relax them back into the group with the other girls. We also have a group of peer supporters who are breastfeeding mums or have breastfed their children previously, and they've done a 9-week training course with myself and Philippa Parrott, and they've learnt skills to support a mum's decision, so really be a mum-to-mum support, and we now have parent-to-parent peer support groups at B48s on a Thursday, and at Cheriton, the Caterpillars Children's Centre, where you'll find breastfeeding peer supporters. Also, I'm in a group from 12:30 till 2:30 on a Monday afternoon, where I can be accessed quite easily in the community area.
With my first one, I was very conscious of what people were thinking about me, but since then I've got better, and I will feed kind of anywhere. Even to the point I've fed in a shoe shop in the aisle before now.
And do you think that people are more open to it now? That are they getting more used to this sort of thing, or is it still? Have we still got a long way to go?
I think there's probably still a long way to go, but I think it is more accessible now. There's more shops accepting of feeding.
I've always had a really good experience feeding in public, actually. I've never had one negative comment from anybody, and although I think, like most mums, I was probably quite conscious to start with, once I realised that, do you know what, once you get the hang of this, it's actually quite quick. I don't think most people even notice you're doing it, so I don't think it's actually the big issue that people think it is. I should think there's probably a lot more mums feeding around the town than you realise, because you don't notice, because they're just getting on with it. So I've personally had a really good experience of feeding in public. I've just done it when I've needed to and carried on with whatever else I was doing. So yeah.
Is there anything else that you would want to say to sort of the next generation of parents about breastfeeding? Would there be any comments that you would say that you haven't said already?
I would say, if you're having a baby and you're not sure how you're going to feed them, just give breastfeeding a go. Even if you just take it one feed at a time, just for want of a better phrase, suck it and see, I guess, isn't it? But just, take it one day at a time. You never know, you might get on great and you'll have a great breastfeeding relationship with the child. And if things don't go to plan, there's always places like the Sure Start Centre and B48s and Caterpillars in Cheriton. Those are places you can just go, sit down, have a chat with other breastfeeding mums, work through your problems. Just give it a go and see. You never know, you might really, really love it.